Hello everyone and welcome. In today's video we are talking about Rakdos Monarch or Rakdos Cascade because we play Wording Party. Well, basically it's a traditional style mid-range deck with a lot of disruption in form of removals for creatures and it also has a good aggressive gameplay with Cittering Rats, Liliana Spectre and Wording Party. Actually, only Birding Party is a true aggressive card. Staring Rats and Liliana Spectre are more a sort of grindy creature or a form of end disruption for your opponent. Compared to the old Rakdos Monarch deck I was playing before the print of Commander Legends with the Cascade creatures, I'm not playing Phyrexian Rager or Ukiba against Shinobi because I think Birding Party is so much better compared to other endgame threats. So I think we can cut Phyrexian Rager to play more copies of Liliana Spectre, also thanks to Bonder's Ornament, which we can play in 4 copies, both because we play Birding Party and because Bonder's Ornament is so much good. There's no so many reasons to play less than 4 copies in this kind of deck. There's not so many explanations about the deck list actually. We don't play Grey Merchant of Asphodel because it's not really good. You may think Merchant is the best card in mono black, but I think it's not a relevant card. Also, playing a second color, we can include better lands like Radiant Fountain and Rakdos Carnelium. So we have some helpful ATB effect from Radiant Fountain, Bloodfell Caves, Puchuka Bog, and also we have a virtual form of card advantage in Rakdos Carnelium. Basically, any bounce land is the best land you can play in any traditional mid-range style deck because you are certain to have an additional land drop with only 2 lands. If you keep a starting end with a Rakdos Carnelium and any other non-bounce land, you are sure to hit your 0 land drop with only 2 lands, and it's so incredibly good in Pauper because excluding the removal spells, any creature or extra type of card advantage, for example Bonder's Ornament, requires a lot of mana, and Rakdos Carnelium obviously allows you to keep an hand with a low amount of lands, still having more mana compared to any other kind of land. We can take a look at the previous Rakdos Monarch list I was playing before. So we can see I was playing Phyrexian Rager, Fleetest Looting, Creep Rats, and Keep Against Shinobi. This deck, in this deck, Keep Against Shinobi was very good because I was also playing more creatures with a lower converted mana cost, and I was also playing Fatalist Looting because I wasn't playing a lot of copies of Bonder's Ornament. Looting was actually very good in this kind of deck because also thanks to the Rakdos Carnelium, it wasn't an aggressive cantrip like in decks such as Boros Bully, because you don't often play Fatalist Looting in this mid-range in an early game to dig for flashback spells, but you usually cast it to get some card advantage by discarding useless card or just to dig in to find any answers if the opponent is playing a beatdown deck or any other aggressive deck where you need to find your specific 8 cards. I was playing a singleton copy of Creeper's main deck and more copies of the Coin Decay. Well, I played it in a different metagame where Boros Bully was much better more played, and Creep Rats was also good, but as you can see, there's not a lot of bigger creatures. They have a maximum 3 point in toughness, so Pestilence and Creep Rats usually are only an end game card or a big sweeper against Swarm's decks. Well, in my new deck list, I'm playing Pestilence because I think is a better main deck card. It's much more flexible. You can bot swipe their board or just ping 1 damage for turn. Meanwhile, attacking with Sieging Rats, Turn of Black Rose, or Birding Party. I think both Pestilence and Creep Rats are good in these decks and probably necessary. I think they're better compared to Suffocating Fumes or Fear Cannonade. Let's see eventually another deck list of this deck, because I'm not the first playing Birding Party in Rakdos Monarch. I saw at least another player getting a 5-0 in Pauper League with this deck. But it was they were playing a slightly different deck list. For example, they weren't play too many Terminate, they were splitting with Cast Down. Don't really see the reason to split Terminate with Cast Down. They are basically the same card, but Terminate is much more better. It can kill Guardian of the Guild Pact. It can also kill River Boa, because it doesn't allow the creature to regenerate. They weren't playing Coin Decay, but I still think Coin Decay is one of the better answers in any black removal decks, because Boros Bully and any other Swarm deck are played a lot in Pauper. I don't see also any reason to play less than 4 copies of Generous Edict, because we have Flashback, they have Flashback, and we also generate a lot of mana, because we want to get enough mana to draw with Wonders Ornament and to play a Birding Party. And I think in any kind of this deck is really necessary to play 4 copies of Night Whisper, because we have Birding Party, and Cascadian Night Whisper is probably one of the best play we can do with this deck. Basically, we have a mono-red Multi-Drifter, and that's awesome, because a nasty Multi-Drifter with a much better body, well, is really good. Obviously, it's not a Multi-Drifter, because we can cascade removal spells. Meanwhile, the opponent doesn't have any creature on the battlefield, but still, I think is good enough to play 4 copies of Birding Party. Also, I want to whitelist that this black-based mid-range were lacking a good endgame, excluding, obviously, the Merchant of Asphodel. But thanks to Birding Party, now we have a really good way to end the game as fast as possible with Birding Party, because as a 6 point of power, there's no other explanation. Also, it is asked, well, it's true. Well, we can talk then about the sideboard. Probably the most the basic reason to play red in these decks are cards like Red Elemental Blast and Gorilla Shaman. Usually Affinity is not really good for any black based mid-range, excluding maybe Golgari, because Golgari they can play Pulse of Muraza, Weather Storm, and on any other kind of artifact 8. Also in red we have Gorilla Shaman, which is well, an Armageddon effect only for Affinity. I also think Rakdos Monarch is probably one of the only deck where I want to play Gorilla Shaman against Boros Monarch, because usually I don't want to play Gorilla Shaman against Boros Monarch if I play any other deck. If I play Affinity and I have a Gorilla Shaman in my sideboard, I don't want to bring in against Boros. Eventually I can bring in against Boros if I play Tron and I have a singleton or 2 copies of Gorilla Shaman in my sideboard, but only, or if I play Walls, but only because these decks generate a crazy amount of mana. Rakdos Monarch, you are not able to tap 5 mana to destroy a Prophetic Prism and then still have mana open. Well, I think Boros Monarch has basically the same kind of gameplay as this deck, but has much better creatures and is much better to keep the Monarch. So we can bring in Gorilla Shaman to try to stop them from playing the game, and also we can eventually destroy their Trouble Inspector clue. Red Elemental Blast is obviously a Pyroblast, and it's the best way to stop blue card advantage. I'm used to play 5 or more copies of Red Elemental Blast in my sideboard. I'm playing only 4 copies just because I want to play 2 Creep Rats and 2 Unexpected Fangs. Eventually I can cut the Memorial Leaks to play 2 extra copies for Elemental Blast and 1 extra copy of Relic of Progenitus. I just wanted to try Memorial Leak because it's a good answer for any combo decks or any blue based control deck. I don't bring in against fairies or any tempo deck because against them it's better to grind them with my value creatures and eventually kill them with Pestilence or Burning Party. And Memory Leak, I prefer it over Duras because Duras doesn't exile the card discarded. Memory Leak is much flexible and much better because you can exile a Muldrifter, a Mystical Teachings, a Dinova Horror, or any other problematic card from Tron, or maybe any combo decks. Eventually you can also cycle it if you if you doesn't really need to discard your cards. For example, it's a good card against Burn because you can discard both creature and non-creature, and eventually if they don't have any card in hand, or if you know what they have in hand and there's no reason to discard their cards, you can cycle it to try to find our removal spells, an additional land drop, or any better card. Unexpected Fangs is mostly for burn because traditionally for any black midrange based, if you don't play white or green, you're not well positioned against burn. Unexpected Fangs is obviously free life gain, and I have Burning Party. It's a 7/4 Burning Party is able to survive our Lightning Bolt, and gaining 7 lives per turn is really good against burn. You can also bring obviously against any aggro decks like Stumpy, maybe Affinity. Creep Rats in the end is the best sweeper for Swarm decks. We are not really well positioned against the Swarm deck. We have a lot of removal spells, yes. We also have main deck Pestilence, main deck Echoing Decay, but if you don't find them, if you don't draw them, well, you are still bad positioned against Swarm deck. You can lose against Elves if you don't find any sweeper on game 1, so just try to have more sweepers on game 2, so you can Art Mulligan or just have more changes to draw a Master Removal to destroy all their creatures, and then win on mid-late game with your Thorn of Black Rose, Burning Party, or any kind of card advantage, or beat down a creature. Relic of Progenitus, that's not a really must inclusion, but still I think it's good because it's the best way to answer cards such as Ripping the Graves, and obviously decks like Cycle Storm and Tron. I think this deck is better positioned against, compared to Mono Black, is better positioned against any first decks, because you have 4 copies of Wonders Ornament, and you also have Burning Party, and it's also better positioned against decks like Burn, because you have Radiant Fountain and also Burning Party. Burning Party is probably good against any deck, because it's both card advantage, a big creature, and a easy way to win a game in the late game. Okay, let's see what is happening in our Pauper League with this deck.